There it is.
We're
there
live.
it is. We are live, y'all. We
God.
are live. All right, welcome to the Data Center News Show. And I'm in the house with my old friends and new friend. This is awesome. Very cool. So we're going to talk data center stuff today.
One person's house is another person's studio.
Exactly.
Right.
That's how that goes. For sure. I'm with you. All right. Well, Phil, since you're the newbie, you can introduce yourself. You're not new to the industry. You're just new to my show.
I am not new to the industry, for better or worse. My name is Philip Koblenz. I have been in the data center industry since 1996, since I was a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, long-haired youth. And I started a company called NYI, which has evolved into kind of a multi-tenant, interconnection-focused regional data center provider based in New York City, as the name indicates, with facilities in 60 Hudson Street and outside of Chicago in Oak Brook. I also co-founded the Nomad Futurist Foundation with Nabil Mahmood, who Howie is very familiar with. And our mission as an organization is to kind of introduce the digital infrastructure industry to the next generation of folks, not to solve the immediate talent pipeline deficits, which are significant, but to try to figure out who is going to lead us into the next generation, the leaders of 2030, 2040, 2050, and beyond. So at some point, maybe I can retire. I'll never retire. And we also have a podcast by the same name, Nomad Futurist, where we interview all of the leaders in our industry about their origin stories in the hopes that something of their stories and the kind of weird and winding roads they took to become digital infrastructure leaders resonate with the younger generation. So thank you for having me, Amy. Always a pleasure, Howie.
Glad to have you, Phil.
Yeah, it's awesome. And Howie.
It's like he's done it before.
It's you know what? Look at this fancy microphone. Look at this fancy microphone.
Yeah, let's see.
I can't even see it.
I don't know.
Oh,
There it is.
It's just too far from that camera. I can't. You know what? I got to work on this.
I like it, man.
I know.
I got a face for radio. This is not supposed to be a video platform.
You look lovely today.
That was fishing. That was me fishing for a compliment. Howie passed the test. Amy
He
just
did.
Boom. I've been on this train.
Right.
Yes. Hey, Howard Berry here, Avison Young. I run a national data center platform at Avison Young with a bunch of talented folks that come from the data center industry, learning commercial real estate. So we're a crew of intelligent people with great connections here at AY.
Very cool. And one of those connections is this show. And I'm Amy Palvido, and I'm the CEO of Facilimax. We are a digital twin provider for the data center industry, and we're changing the world. And how you train your technicians, how you do all sorts of different data center operations. That's what we do. It's awesome. Well, all right, let's get into the story. This was in one of our stories, but I was watching the video and it was talking about, I'm going to skip the tariffs for a second, because that's been the biggest news, and nobody.
Can we turn this into a political talk show? I think that would be.
Yeah, it gets there. We can't avoid it. It gets there sometimes. But this is about how Russia and China basically are now officially holding hands in the AI deal, and they're like, there is no limits to our partnership, and blah, 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 blah. It was a really, Investors Business Daily had a really cool video about it, talking about, China's not really getting much out of this partnership other than, maybe some mathematicians and some computer scientists. But, and it was really interesting, but we are in an AI war or race or whatever you want to call it. We're in that. And there's the big race to, there was the race to the moon, is now the race to AI. It was interesting. It was an interesting article, an interesting time. And I think that the biggest thing is just we're not really sure what this does with Russia. I think everybody's scared to death that, now they're going to be more Russian hackers. There'll just be AI agents that are Russian hackers. I don't know. But I'm throwing that one out. That's our top story.
All right. So what I will say is that, first of all, the only reason we got to the moon is because we were competing against Russia to get there, right? So you kind of need someone to compete against in order to get there. So I could put a positive. I could sell ice to an Eskimo, so I can put a positive spin on anything. Look, AI is an accelerant, and I don't think we lived through the kind of 2020 election and the 2016 election. I mean, Russian troll farms were the norm then in terms of manipulating social media, having fake accounts with multiple followers and stuff, which almost seems like rudimentary at this point. So to suggest that there will be more of the nefarious actors as a consequence of AI is the point. It accelerates good things. It accelerates bad things. If you use it within your organization, it's only as good as the data that it's fed. It's only as good as the model that it's created off of. So it's got as much of a positive potential as it does negative potential. I don't know what more other than bravado and attention seeking, a kind of being arm in arm between China and Russia has beyond that. Obviously you have a significant amount of innovation coming out of China. DeepSeek was a big thing that came out recently. It would be better to isolate the nefarious actors, but inevitably those that seek attention will come together in order to gain attention. And I hope over the course of the long term that the nefarious actors calling attention to themselves only motivates the non-nefarious actors to accelerate their innovation. The end.
Awesome.
I was going to say that.
Right. I would drop my mic, but it's on an arm. I can't even mic drop appropriately. It's ridiculous. Let's just make this the Philip Kovlin show.
Yeah, we should.
We should. I'm on this ride. I like it. Well, they don't get H100s, right? They don't. They got to create their own GPUs. And where's their technology? And DeepSeek, what? Deep what?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. We don't know what we don't know, right? And I think that was a great point that Phil, that maybe they're all big grand gestures and announcements that aren't real.
My initial take on DeepSeek, I grew up in the shadows of New York City. I'm in northern New Jersey right now. I am not someone that is surprised by going on Canal Street and seeing a Chinese knockoff. So you can get a Vuitton and you can get a Chinese DeepSeek based large language model. The whole point is that things get cheaper to make and the whole Jevons paradox element of it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think innovation tends to be born out of kind of a desire for that stuff. So I still think kind of the US based element of it. There would be no DeepSeek if there was no OpenAI and there was no Sam Altman and all of those things. So it is a part of the evolution of all technologies is they are mimicked and manipulated and then better things come out as a consequence of it. So
and maybe you can describe Jevons paradox for the people watching what that is, because I've used it as well, and I think I got it from you. So thank you.
And it's clear that you didn't know what it meant when you used it. Now everybody knows that Howie didn't know what it meant. And I don't know. Look, I'm not an economist, so I will try to paraphrase it. I will try to paraphrase it, which is one would think that the increases in efficiency would cause kind of reductions in demand because things get easier to do. But in reality, as you increase efficiency, it increases productivity. And what that makes is people to want more of it. So it is a counterintuitive theory, which if you look on LinkedIn recently, somebody quoted it and I said, it actually doesn't seem that paradoxical that as things get more efficient in the way we are right now. I did not know how much stuff I needed on a daily basis until Amazon allowed me to just continue to order it. And then all of a sudden, there is no satisfying my appetite for those little packages and boxes and bags and groceries and whatever. That used to be a once a week thing or at best, going to the mall or whatever. And now I can't even stand up on my stoop without being like surrounded by boxes. So it is humankind is not a paradox at all. It will from this point on be referred to as Phil's norm.
Well, Phil,
Quoted.
you're keeping whoever UPS. Well, the drones. You're keeping the drones busy.
The drones have not made it to New Jersey, notwithstanding the
Really?
fact that I know that the Jersey was in the news because we saw drones all over the place. I have never gotten an Amazon package via drone, unless that was the name of the USPS or UPS driver or FedEx driver, or the guy that just drives up in his car. I don't even know what the difference is. Like I'll order something and it'll be the exact same thing. And one day it'll be a UPS driver, and one day it'll be like just some dude in a car that just throws something and takes a picture of my door.
I know, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, I've seen them in my neighborhood where they're just in cars. They're like Uber drivers delivering Amazon.
But all I know is I want more. I need more. I need more of it. I just lose it and buy another one because it's so easy. I don't even keep track on my stuff anymore. I just
do you use AI?
I probably I really don't. I really don't.
Are you a ChatGPT subscriber?
I mean, I am a subscriber because I like it to use it for the image rendering. It's a lot easier to render an image when you can just go to ChatGPT and say, you show me a picture of whatever, and then I can use it for whatever internal material I want to create. So for that reason, I use it. I don't really use it. I review a lot of press releases in what we do, and I can tell in a second something that is AI generated versus something that has a human element to it. And it drives me crazy when there is a kind of, and I don't want to use robotic to seem that I think an actual robot is typing on a typewriter, but there's just something that is like not human, not authentic about documentation that's put out by AI. But I certainly understand the benefit of leveraging AI for repeatable tasks. I just don't think the content that is generated from AI, notwithstanding its organization, is particularly compelling.
Yeah. Well, that's because they haven't taught their AI model to be compelling, right?
Right. Which is why I don't use it, because if I use it, I'll teach it. And I don't want to teach it. I want to be me.
Really? You don't want to Phil clone? Building out
now here we go. Amy is trying to make my digital twin. You will not digital twin me, Amy. No.
I am totally going to digital twin you, man.
No, that's fine. Just make sure that
you can have an argument with yourself on your podcast.
Just make sure my twin has hair.
Of course. Every avatar's got to look prettier.
Okay. But then is it a twin? Is it a twin then, Amy? I mean, come on.
No, it's not. Not a true one. Yeah.
I forget what the question was.
I know.
Am I ever going to be invited back on this show?
You might be. You're pretty good. It's pretty funny.
Who wouldn't?
Exactly.
Who wouldn't? Amy will tell you after I disconnect.
All right. So we get back to the US, obviously we have the best technology, blah, blah, blah. And that's super awesome. And they had what do they call it? It's a chip contest. They just had the recent chip contest where NVIDIA
hackathon.
Yeah, no, it's like where they test their chips. So Intel sent theirs, Google sent theirs.
Like a benchmark.
NVIDIA, that thing. I call it a chip contest. Apparently, NVIDIA was all excited.
Are Ruffles and Lay's going to enter as well?
Maybe. I think so.
Doritos. I think Doritos wins the chip
contest. Doritos should win.
When does Cracker get in?
Right.
I don't know. What's Cracker?
Right.
I don't know. It's the other side of chip.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So apparently the Blackwells did well. They were all excited about how well their AI GPUs, which China is never going to get. They're never going to get a Blackwell. That's for damn sure. That's not good for them. Unless they buy it on the black market. They probably have them.
They have them. They get them. They get them.
I mean, look, a lot. This is there. If you want to create something that China will never get, then don't create anything. I mean, they have the biggest market on the planet. They have the largest population on the planet. So, and the world, no matter, tariffs or no tariffs, the world is as small as it's ever been. and it's going to continue to be that way. So the evolution of humanity and technology cannot be paused by fear of mimicry, by fear of other people getting access to technology. Because if you're going to do that on anything, do that on nuclear missiles. Don't do that on processors. I think in general, my consternation with these AI chips, Blackwell and Jensen, who I'm clearly on a first name basis with, coming onto the stage of GTC and saying 600 kilowatt racks and things like that are they're clearly, if you have no limit to the amount of power that you can allocate, then you'd have no limit to the amount of processing capability that you can generate. But there doesn't seem to be enough disruption on the kind of AI type chipset yet. I think AMD is trying and Intel is trying, and there are a couple of different RDU manufacturers that are coming out there. That we have not gotten to the kind of evolution arc of GPU processing or AI processing where they've started focusing on power efficiency, not just in terms of how do we generate enough power, either through Tesseract or nuclear, SMR or green power or whatever carbon offset nonsense they want to generate. You just need to make it so you're not using that much power. I mean, which is what we did with hard drives. Like, it was spinning disks until it got to a certain point, then it was SSDs, and then all of a sudden, there are these pendulums that swing back and forth on power. It was true even at the dawn of the data center age, when you had these giant kind of socket 370 processors that were in these gigantic chassis, and you couldn't fit more than 5 servers in a rack, which is why anything that any data center that was built during the kind of turn of the century, can't believe I'm old enough to say turn of the century, during the turn of the century, was built to a spec of, we'll never use more than 20 amps of 110 power. How could you possibly? Because you need these giant chassis to do it. And now, it's a joke if you're not using 208 power, 3-phase power, or whatever. Right. And now they're talking about 600 kW racks. It's just the pendulum has swung so far in the other direction that it is ripe for disruption from an efficiency perspective. And I think what Phil's norm suggests is more efficiency will create more demand, which will create more digital twins.
What's the densest rack you've ever seen, Phil?
I mean, I'm in a kind of tier 1 NFL city markets. So I think my world is certainly 10, 12. I've seen 30. But beyond 30, I've never seen a practical use. I mean, in theoretical uses, I've seen, immersion cooling and things that can theoretically do it. But in my world, I have not seen a practical use for more than, honestly, 20 to 30 kW in a single rack. And even that is 1 out of 5 racks that they're using for storage that don't necessarily need anywhere near that level of density. And I think even if you peel the onion of the 600 kW rack that they were referring to, it's not a single rack. It is a pod that has storage associated with it, because you simply don't need that type of density for storage. So anybody that's out there that's building a data center or in school today that wants to come up with a theoretical design for a data center, they don't all need to be 100 or 50 or 80 or 600 kW, because that's just for the processing, the intense processing workloads, which, none of that works without, the storage and the networking and all the things that, have more, kind of rational densities associated with them. Rant over.
Yeah. We see the same.
No, you got another one in you, I think.
No, I mean, just say, once you pull this string, you never know what's going to come out.
Does it ever get retracted all the way?
It might.
I've seen.
We're about to find out.
It seems messy, right, at best. And
I mean, do you want to put on a scuba gear to reboot a server? You don't actually need to do that. It's I
know, but the dialectic.
It is not unbelievably practical.
No, I think, but it's a lot. It's messy.
It's messy, but maybe that mess makes sense for certain workloads. Look, I think the people that get rewarded in this age of like hyper dense deployments are the ones that have facilities or design facilities that can be hybridized from an infrastructure standpoint, that have
Right.
some element that can support kind of the floor loads and
Right.
infrastructure
Right.
that do water-based cooling, immersion cooling, traditional air cooling, and there will be elements of the facilities for which you can maximize the efficiency by putting the appropriate workloads in the appropriate sections, but have a facility that can support multiple workloads. And we haven't even gotten to, the quantum kind of cryogenic workloads, which is a completely different set of infrastructure and economics and character traits that still need a similar level of criticality and resilience and all that, but a different set of infrastructure. So there is no one size fits all for any of it.
Have you seen a quantum?
I have seen I have not seen like one of those beautiful chandelier things, but for, the pictures, not the ones that I'm generating on ChatGPT, which would probably lie to me about it anyway. But I have seen equipment that leverages quantum network technologies. I think one of the units that we run within 60 Hudson Street is trying to be on the forefront of the commercialization of quantum computing, which is going to start in cybersecurity and networking. And in order to, you can't use a traditional kind of lit network architecture to support quantum computing. It has to be dark fiber, which benefits and creates significant relevance to large, dense dark fiber environments like carrier hotels, like a 60 Hudson Street or a 350 Cermak or Weston Building, 1 Wilshire. Pick a city. There's a couple, 3 buildings that are the carrier hotels of that site.
Interesting.
But so you said cybersecurity, so the only focused on cybersecurity?
I think that's the first type of commercialization. Obviously, you hear, what Microsoft is doing and how fast, you're solving a lot of these problems, but that's more theoretical than it is commercially viable use case. I think the first commercially viable use case for quantum, which is still a couple of years out, is going to most certainly be cybersecurity. And that's where you have to really start being concerned with things like cryptocurrency that, you think have an impenetrable defense in terms of, how secure the tokens are. Once you start introducing, kind of quantum types of technology, all of a sudden, the keys and the tokens are not as impenetrable as you might have thought, previously.
Well, Amy, that segues into your article, one of your articles.
Yeah. There was a story. Yeah. I'm sorry for interrupting. But yeah, there was a story a couple of months ago where some Chinese hackers used quantum to break the blockchain, and they broke it. And but so IBM has a thing that if you're smart enough and they approve you, you can use their quantum computer for $96 a minute. So if you really, if you really want to play.
Just that Data Center World article and bringing that up and I never heard of this before. Is it called DDoS? DDoS? Is that what's called, Phil?
It is not. DDoS is a distributed denial of service attack, which applies not just to quantum computing, but to all networking things.
And that's where you flood the system with.
That's where you flood a network with packets. That is different than breaking encryption through quantum computing.
Right. Okay.
Right.
I didn't know if that solved that. You're on the compute side. I'm just.
There's clearly, there's the real estate guy, there's the network guy, and there's the digital twin lady.
And you might get some insight out of the 3 of us together. It's gonna happen.
You put us together, and we are unstoppable.
Exactly. All right, let's get back to power. So apparently, they're in Pennsylvania. There's a site that was a former refinery, or what the hell was it? It was a former refinery, and they're bringing it back to life. And they just found, it was Pennsylvania's biggest coal-fired power plant. And they decommissioned it. Well, now they're firing that sucker back up, and they're going to have, 4.5 gigawatts of power.
Let's hope they're not firing that sucker back up. Let's hope they're building something on top of that they're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they actually spent the money for the infrastructure to bring a gas pipeline to that site. So now they're going to do a natural gas fired power plant that's going to have co-located next to it a data center park. And then it's going to be 4.5 gigawatts of power. And if there's not enough data centers that want to suck up all that power, then they'll kick it back to the community.
Yeah. I'll bury the lead. There are enough data centers to suck up that power, unfortunately. There is a huge trend, and Howie can probably reinforce this for powered land and land adjacent to smelting plants and power plants and these areas that have a significant amount of distribution infrastructure and a lot of the building blocks for power generation and instead of finding a way to bring the power to a data center for distribution from there, which was the kind of early generation of it, where the focus was on getting people on the internet and distributing the network. Now the limitation in building data centers is power. So instead of trying to figure out a way to get these large swaths of power out to a building that you're building the thing either on top of the power plant or adjacent to the power plant is all the rage. And it's true around the world. You'll see a lot of these developments happening in areas of, former power plants, smelting plants, these large power utilizing or generating environments.
Isn't it funny how, a data center isn't interested in power generation behind the meter, but if we can tie into a power plant and build right next to a power plant, we're going to do that all day long. Really, what's the difference here?
I mean, I actually think there are plenty of data centers that are interested in behind the meter power generation. There's an entire business that Yuval Bachar is creating on hydrogen-based power behind the meteor. Behind the meteor.
But
that's next decade.
Phil, I keep hearing over and over how the customers don't want to be in a data center that isn't tethered to the grid.
Look, I think the grid suggests that there's a grid, right? So it suggests resilience. I think at this point we're in the kind of beggars can't be choosers phase of these large language models that might not have the same kind of limitations in terms of tier rating and resilience and concurrent maintainability. The Uptime Institute tier ratings, 1 through 4. And you have a lot of these kind of repurposed kind of tier 0 crypto mining sites that have a significant amount of power, either solar or some level of behind the meter that are. I just want to use meteors. I just want to use meteors. I'm on next meteor shower. I'm building a data center. I'm building a data center on a meteor. But I think you see a lot of land and data centers that are being developed that are leveraging natural gas turbines for immediate access to what they refer to as bridge power, and then wanting to then create a pathway to the grid so that they have some resilience and they have the ability to essentially sell any excess capacity they have at any given point back to the grid. So it makes sense to connect the grids to it.
Absolutely.
It also makes sense to be independent of the grids, because one thing I think we can all agree on in terms of, utilities in general are not the fastest movers. Like the amount of time that it takes to develop, these gigawatts of capacity is significant. And the need for AI demand is, maybe it's not peaking right now, but it's fever pitched right now. And I don't think it lasts forever. I think a lot of it is, I might be, kind of the skeptic as it relates to, is it sustainable? I frankly think it is not. I think, you saw some of the Microsoft leases that they've, kind of changed some of their positioning on which sites they're going to move forward with and which sites they aren't. Much to the dismay of the owners of those sites that thought they had a ready to build project that Microsoft was backing, only to find Microsoft back out of it. I think a lot of this demand is based on a similar, if not exactly the same, workload. And once we start backfilling some of this crazy demand, there's going to be a significant kind of overcapacity. It's a pendulum. So inevitably, we're going to overshoot whatever our goal is. And there's going to be a significant amount of overbuilt capacity within the next 4 or 5 years that we're then going to figure out is going to need some element of not just all AI workloads. There is a world beyond CoreWeave and all those things. It's just difficult to hear about that world because they are sucking up all the oxygen. 99% of the actual corporate work that gets done, the enterprise workloads that get done, whether it's the government or the hyperscale cloud, are traditional workloads that are living in, let's call it 10 to 30 kW cabinets. And that's not going to change anytime soon. And go ahead.
So let me say on the Microsoft thing, and Microsoft going back to that and their over allocation of space, it felt like a little bit of a block from anybody else to take up those spaces so that they can get control. And maybe there was ultimately a plan to drop that at some point because everybody does it, right? Everybody over allocates on their space until they need it. I don't know how far they went with
right. It's just, but it's something. It's something that somebody else ends up holding the bag on. I don't think those were Microsoft's.
But Metal just come behind and pick it up.
Right. But there's a timeline in between those two things. And it's just, I know the feeling of what it's like to be in a project like that came at a cost. I mean, on paper, who cares, right? Microsoft still says they're going to spend $8 billion on data centers, but there are people that were let go from that project. There were actual human ramifications, which sometimes we lose in the seeing the forest through the trees. Kind of way that we kind of paint this broad picture of the digital infrastructure and just, paint by numbers and spreadsheets and all that. There are real people that are impacted by those shifting priorities and strategies, et cetera.
So besides storage and there was not an article, but somebody I talked with the other day talking about especially load balancing or whatever it might be. So you have the AI, which is unpredictable, and Taylor Swift's going to sell concert tickets. Everybody's hitting ChatGPT, or she posts something on Instagram, whatever. There's these big spikes in energy, but there's the constant. Obviously, you were saying the 10 to 30 kW. People are just doing their daily course of business or whatever. His thesis was, well, why don't we combine crypto mining at a data center? That way, you can turn the crypto mining off pretty much anytime you want. You don't have to. A lot of people want to mine 24/7, but it's crypto and whatever. But you could theoretically turn it off, right, when the load gets crazy, but at least tries to balance it out. Is that a reasonable thesis, or is that just crazy talk?
I am not someone that believes in the idea of using power just because it's there. I think there's, at some point we have a world that is heating up and all that stuff. And I know I don't want to be the buzzkill on you, but you have the power. Just
Phil
run it up.
Koblenz. There you go.
Right. Phil Ocasio-Cortez Koblenz. I think that it certainly makes sense to even out demand. And I think that is the point of hyperscalers. The burstiness of demand is the entire justification for a kind of hybridization of compute workloads, where you have a consistently used resource from a compute perspective, and that's what you have. Let's call it on-prem or in a data center in an environment that you control. And then you kind of extend out to the public cloud providers, the hyperscalers, the Googles and Microsoft Azures and Oracle cloud infrastructure and Amazons of the world. And that's what that's where those bursty elements of compute happen. I'm a much bigger fan of not manufacturing that utilization, but recognizing that there are times that it'll be Taylor Swift and Ticketmaster that is the justification for that burst. There are times that it'll be a big news story that comes out, and that's the justification for it, and that kind of evens out, and that's the reason why hyperscale providers exist, because they have access to that kind of just-in-time infrastructure where across the grid it balances out. But it's not just this hyper utilization in one small area that, you're either using as much power as you possibly can, or you're using none.
Yeah. So not a good use case for edge, right?
Probably not. And I also think the crypto mining, there's a value to it because there is a market for it. But does it have utility? Like, are you using that power to create something that does anything other than make Andrew Tate rich? Yeah, I guess a different podcast.
Different podcast.
Well, and the crypto negotiated PPAs with load shedding, so they can be turned off at any time, and they're
yeah. I mean, how do you balance? You can't get to a price point for power for crypto miners in general that will introduce any even moderate level of redundancy or resilience that like a real workload, like a business critical process will support. So, it's that AI and crypto, while there are similarities both in chipset design and in kind of overall power utilization, it's not the kind of thing you want to just turn off and turn on.
Yeah. Interesting. So, so the edge market is supposed to grow like crazy town, 20% over the next couple of years. I love these predictions because it seems like in the last 5 years, they're always wrong. They're going to use this much. Data centers are going to do this. Data centers are going to do that.
The weathermen are wrong the same week. I mean, what do you expect from these guys? Did you ever see in all those things? The fine print is past performance does not integrate, it does not infer future performance.
Exactly.
Do we call it best guess?
Yeah, best guess. All right, it's their best guess. 20% over the next, 5 years. But what are you seeing, Howie? Because you got your pulse on the market.
Well, yeah,
pulse on the finger. You got the pulse on the finger.
Colo. Hold on. Colo is it's going 30% annually year over year. So edge, maybe it's part of that portion. There has been a slight increase, and these are smaller data centers in metropolitan and in NFL cities. So we have seen an increase in demand for those sites. Everything's growing. Everybody's trying to grab anything they can right now.
I have to stop myself from pulling my own string on these things and sucking all the oxygen out of the room. I think these predictions are completely insane to put any vested interest in, but you have to take the 30,000 foot view. It's not just edge in a bubble or in you can't just look at it with blinders on. It is what is happening to technology more broadly. Like, what is the reason behind the AI explosion? What is the reason behind just technology growing overall? And in large part, it's because all the humans have become data generating machines. So I have an Oura Ring on and a phone and a watch and a refrigerator that tells me when I'm out of milk and a million other Internet of Things items that are creating data and probably listening to me on a minute by minute basis. Have at it, folks. I hope you enjoy the show. But the edge is where the people are. It's where the data is being generated. So the more growth there is in data, the more the edge will grow. And the more, it's not just the data centers that have to grow, it's also the networks and the interconnectivity that has to grow alongside them, because all we're doing is moving data from the edge, which is literally in Howie's pocket, to the computer room that is like an actual one, not the fake one that's behind Howie right now, that is within spitting distance. And then shipping that data over to the machine learning things in the Midwest or in Texas or in Northern Virginia or wherever. And inevitably, the more data there is, the more spots where inference is happening, where buffering is happening, if there's content being delivered at the edge. I remember vividly 3 or 4 years ago, somebody telling me I could get rid of cable because cable was dead. We're going to cut the cord. And my $200 cable bill was replaced with probably $1,500 in streaming services of all brands. I mean, Apple and Netflix and Amazon.
You have more choice.
There's more choice, no doubt, except every show that I want requires a different one of them. It's amazing how there's no collusion there, but you can't watch Yellowstone new without Paramount, but you can't watch Yellowstone old without Amazon.
It's just ridiculous. And then and I still have cable, and because that's where the internet comes from.
Are you
It's just ridiculous, right? So
are you a
all of
Sanka
this-
man? Do
I don't. This is without coffee. Can you imagine? Actually,
without coffee?
I
love it, man.
I told you once you pull this string. And that's just that. I mean, that's New York City. So the Edge used to refer to only those places. What the pandemic brought us was all of these guys moving out of major cities, working remotely, and notwithstanding the desire to bring people back into the office, there was hyper growth rurally and suburban, and all of those markets are just now, kind of getting on the internet. They are the national version of the emerging market. And there's only more data that is being created in these areas that never had capacity before, which is going to require towers and edge deployments of all different sizes.
So hold your seat, Amy. What do you think about memory and the amount of storage that we're creating on a minute by minute basis?
Yeah, I mean, nobody deletes anything. I think that I think memory is aided by ginkgo biloba. That's what they used to tell me.
It helps you.
So the more my memory fades, the more reliant I am on the memory that my phone has about that's not what these kids look like anymore. And I wouldn't remember what they looked like unless I had my phone remind me. Yeah. Facebook is what's telling me what happened 5 years ago on this day. It's no longer here. I've outsourced this to Zuckerberg.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
He's going to just use that.
You know what? Apologies to Zuckerberg, because he's the one that has to live with what used to be in my head.
But he's going to use it against you.
Good luck with that, Mark. I'll buy the thing anyway. It's ridiculous. I give up. I'm a slave to my consumerism. So you know what? I'll take it.
That's too funny.
That's great.
I know. That's hilarious.
Thank God we brought Phil on.
I know. I know. Our shows are usually pretty funny, though. They're pretty.
Dude, I got to go to dinner with you. I'm coming to New York.
Right. You're supposed to. Am I supposed to be sweating? I have to see what. My Aura ring might be telling me to get my affairs in order.
It's red alert.
Fucking hell. Honey, you look like you lost weight. Did you work out today? No. I had the Amy and Howie interview.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, tell us what happened.
If we could do like a pulse in the corner, like what's his heart rate?
That's Howie's finger on the pulse. You don't actually know anything. Amy just asked the question, and then you're like, I think there's growth rate. It's a 30%, 40%.
No, we're gonna get your heart rate monitor on there.
Right. That's what no doubt. We're gonna connect it. We're gonna connect it.
All right, tell us what happened at DCD, man. What happened?
I mean, anybody that follows me on LinkedIn, and I suggest you all check me out. I'm amazing.
Check him out,
and will know that I took a lot of pictures of myself because that's the only KPI that I have when I go to these conferences. Mm-hmm. It was DCD's 25th anniversary. And George Rocket doesn't look a day over 24. In dog years. I'm kidding, George. I love you. It was I have noticed a palpable increase in attendance for all these conferences. Part of it is like coming out of COVID, the benefit of in-person engagement, and the fact that notwithstanding the amazing relationship that we have built in the 30 minutes that we've known each other, 43 minutes and 7 seconds that we've known each other.
Yes.
It is difficult, especially for someone that is starting their career, to build relationships without having some way to go in person. And what I saw at DCD was not a 15 or 20 or 30% increase in attendance like I've seen in some of these other shows of the usual suspects, but a 100%. I mean, there were so many more people. Every talk, every breakout session was standing room only. And in large part, it wasn't people from within the industry that I saw as the kind of unfamiliar faces. It was people from other industries that are trying to figure out how to ride the digital infrastructure gravy train. And you saw a lot of these kind of deer in headlights that were like, all right, I'm in New York, I'm an investor, I'm a real estate guy. I want to figure out what's going on with this thing that's on the front page of all the papers and what's going on. What is this data center thing? It's
Right.
not that easy. It's not that easy. You can't just walk into one of those shows and do anything but become more confused than when you walked out. Because I lost an entire head of hair. Again, go to LinkedIn. For International Data Center Day last week, I posted a picture of what I looked like when we
saw it.
started, and it was not this. It was, I'm a shell of my former self. And that is, I wear that as a badge of honor, where, you know, you have to learn by experiencing. And I feel for these folks that are coming in and like, I inherited a piece of land, or I own a piece of land, or I represent someone with a random piece of land.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, we can build a data center on it. And 99% of the time, the answer is no. No, you can't.
You
I'm
can't.
sorry. I think it's
welcome to my everyday. I get
Right.
I get 5 or 6 a day that, you know, and I want to get a tattoo that said, "Can my land be a data center?"
right.
Well, I don't know.
Right.
No. Yeah. Maybe.
Right.
And
It's-
there, you have 36 pictures here with the who's who of the. That's a great. I'm just
Right,
looking at
like
it.
that,
That's
right.
amazing. You
Right.
know,
we-
Gino's in there. I see Gino.
Gino's a usual guest on here.
Gino's everywhere.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of guys here that are trying to do it. I can see guys you took pictures with that are trying to the land.
I mean, clearly they're trying to do it because they're taking pictures with me. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. That is where you start, and sometimes it's where you finish. You know, in any event, the energy is palpable in the industry. It was on full display at DCD. I love those conferences where you get to peel the onion a little bit. It's just, it's not obvious. It's not easy. You have to really, you know, kind of immerse yourself in our world to understand not just I have land and I want to earn what I am told is, you know, $150 a kW, and I think I can fit 25 megawatts. Ipso facto, my land, which is empty, that has not had any diligence done on it at all, is worth $80 billion. There has to be a place between there and just recognizing that there is a food chain to how this works. So yes, if it is proximate to power, there is a value for it, but there is an entire, like, there's effort that everyone needs to eat, and there is effort at every element, and owning the land is a small part of a very large ecosystem that's needed in order to bring a data center development to fruition. And if you'd like to learn more, check me out on LinkedIn.
Check him out. Check him out for sure. You're preaching to the choir, buddy.
Right.
It's awesome. Yeah,
Right.
for sure. Yeah.
And then maybe you can create a twin that will preach it even
Yeah,
faster in multiple languages.
Exactly. You know, AI can speak in 80 languages. So, you know,
Right.
it'll tell you in every single language, no, it's not
Right,
for a data
right.
center.
Right. This, by the way, my shtick kills in Pig Latin. So if you have a digital twin,
Okay. All right. Got it. All right. That's awesome. This is super cool. We have last story I wanted to talk about.
there's another story. All right,
Another
go ahead.
story. I always have a story. I always have a story in the back of my brain. We don't talk about this enough. And you were a networking guy, so wanted to see on the connectivity, and we'll have somebody here next week, but on the connectivity part of it, like the fiber, there's not enough of that out in the world, or is there? Is there enough?
There is or there isn't enough fiber? Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
This is Coffee Talk. You should change the name of the show to Coffee Talk.
I do. I should wear a pink dress.
Fiber. Does it make you regular or does it not make you regular? News at 11.
Fiber Town.
I think, right. I think that we are still riding the fiber lines that were put in the ground again at the turn of the century. The majority of the traffic that runs the internet is run along the train tracks, up and down and side to side in this country. That
They're not all underground.
Right. They're not all underground now, but there are dozens of companies that Howie and I could name ad nauseum that went out of business building the fiber backbone of this country. And there is not enough attention put to the development of fiber assets that are going to be the absolute throughway that allows us to leverage a lot of the power capacity that is currently being talked about. And you talk about those two things in a vacuum at your peril. So you can't just put data center next to power company and think that through a cell phone you're going to be able to download everybody's data and spit it back out. People have insatiable abilities to create data, but so many of the applications of today, whether it's autonomous driving or telemedicine or people or telehealth, where you have a surgeon in London doing surgery on someone that's in Minnesota. I mean, all of those things require an incredible amount of throughput. And you know, I think there's been a lot of innovation on the ends of those devices. So out of a pair of glass, you can, you know, it used to be like when I started, it was like a gig. Are you crazy? That wasn't even a word that we used. And now, you know, 400 gigs, multiple terabit services are being deployed in like undersea cables by the hyperscalers. And you have people taking ownership of the actual fiber pathways at the same time, with the carriers being the ones that are lagging behind. So, you know, there's an arms race in fiber. It's become now a national security element where, you know, if Russia gets pissed off at someone, they'll just go with a submarine and drop anchor on the cable. Which is, I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Hire a whale to watch it for you? There's nothing you can do, right? So, but a lot of the rules and regulations, so much of the bureaucracy is out of the kind of know of how close this world is. You think that there is an ocean that separates us, but that ocean is tethered. I mean, we are back to the time that there is one continent on this planet, and it is tethered not by the land masses touching each other, but by these cables.
How archaic.
Right. There is no doubt there is not enough of it, and there is no doubt that's where a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And if you don't have, you can have all the resilience you want with behind the meter power and in front of the meter power and tesseracts and small medium range reactors and all that. But if a squirrel still chews on, I don't know, why are we flavoring these above ground cables as nuts? That's actually true. They taste like nuts to squirrels. But if you can still bring a facility down because a squirrel nibbles through the cable, or, you know, some Iranian pirate drops a pebble in the middle of the Bering Strait, geez Louise, man.
Yeah. Okay. So there's not enough fiber.
There's not enough fiber, and as a consequence of it, we're all irregular.
It's very true. The whole data center.
We're all going to get blocked up.
Right.
Thanks.
Right. Don't just drink the juices. Drink the smoothies. Pulp. The pulp is where the magic is.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Funny. It is too funny. Well, we're going to keep talking about it because that, you know, we're cool like that on this show. We're going to keep talking about it. Figure it out. Someone's going to figure it out.
We're going to figure it out.
So who's the guy that could make it this week that possibly might come on next week? Howie, who is he?
Raman Saad.
Mm-hmm.
Raman. He's at Netscope.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. We're going to talk connectivity next week.
He's in Spain right now on vacation, so.
I feel for him. Like, he couldn't come on. Really? It's just vacation. Like, come on.
Priorities. This is why there has not been enough innovation in the fiber backbone, because they're too busy going on vacation.
Yes,
that's it right there.
We're going to solve this problem. As soon as Ramon gets back from vacation, we're going to solve this problem.
We are. No, that'll be very cool. That'll be very cool. All right. Well, we're at the end of our hour.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Still got Amazon boxes to open, and we gotta.
I'm afraid. You know what? I should have like one of those GoPro cameras where I go down my stairs and you see like what that is. Like, it's like my front stoop is like that closet you have that has all the stuff where you open it and it just falls on you.
So basically you're admitting that you're a hoarder. Is that
I'm not only a hoarder, but I am a hoarder married to a hoarder with a family full of hoarders. We are creating the next generation of hoarders.
The Truman Show with Phil would be great.
It'd be amazing.
I think I'd watch that.
Good afternoon, good morning, and good night.
Sign me up.
Exactly. All right, Phil, if somebody wanted to chat with you, how could they do that?
The best place to reach me is LinkedIn. So I'd say, slip into my DMs or whatever the kids are saying these days. If you're interested in Nomad Futurist, nomadfuturist.org. We're always looking for people to work with and engage with to try to get the next generation interested in this amazing, dynamic industry. So I look forward to coming on shows in the future. Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, for sure. It's totally fun. And Mr. Howie.
Hey, Nomad Futurist is a great group, and I've worked with them, and they're doing a lot of great things. So I do endorse you, Phil. You guys are you and Nabil are doing an amazing job. So Howard Berry, Avison Young, and you guys know how to reach me. So
yeah, at by now.
Chat about me.
Yeah. Reach out to him on LinkedIn. And I am Amy Palvido, and this is the end of our fun show. See us next week, and we're gonna have. Also, we always have cool people on the show. So just hang out with us next week at Thursday, 1:30 p.m. Central. Thanks for coming, y'all. It's been fun.
Thank you.